Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you the process of how I transform the ordinary walls in this powder room into this faux alligator hide that has a metallic top coat. So let's get our tools, let's get our materials, and let's get started. Okay, so here we are in the powder room project, and I'm going to go over what I'm doing, what I've done, what I'm doing, and what I'm about to do. So what I first did was prep the walls out by measuring them height top to bottom. It's 9 feet, just under 9 feet. Ceiling is 9 feet, so these came out to 8.6 because of that big crown molding up there. That's going to either get wood grained or painted a color. I'm not quite sure what it would do with it yet. So then I split the wall into thirds, height-wise, and I just split it in half width-wise. So I've got panel, this current panel, soon-to-be panel, soon-to-be. So by doing this checkerboard style, I'm able to only do so many a day. Then I have to come back the following day, protect the other piece with a piece of tape so nothing gets on this. When I do this, then I can do this step. Then when it's all done, then we'll prime it, base coat it with the metallic, throw the glaze and the waxes on top of all that, but way ahead of myself. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. Let me show you how to do the technique. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is get our tools. For this, we're going to need our spatula, our trowel, water mister bottle, and our various sizes imprint rollers. It's the wide one, there's the thin one. And all I'm using for this is good old-fashioned joint compound. That's it. Good old-fashioned joint compound. Like $13.97 or something like that at the home improvement store. Okay, so let me get started. So, let's just move this down here so you can see. Alright. Let's focus here, right? So I'm going to load some mud onto my trowel. I'm just going to put a nice, even, thin coat on here. Now when I come out of this piece here, I'm not going to pile it up on top of the tape, kind of just butting out. If it gets over it a little bit, that's fine. But I don't want to put too much on there. This is being wasteful. It's not a big deal, right? Nice, thin, even coat. Thin is good. Too thick, what's going to happen is the pressure, or the imprint's going to be really thick and it's not going to look right. Sorry, it's tight quarters, so it's hard to see everything in here. But you're just doing a thin skim coat. How thin? I don't know, probably no thinner than 1/8 of an inch, and definitely no more, that's about, just keep it to about 1/8 of an inch. Gather it up, keep it where you want it, or where you can handle it. I'm just cleaning some of this up. It's pretty thick in there, right? I don't need all that heavy material. And once I have good coverage, 100% coverage, there we go. Okay, that part's finished. So now, I'm going to take my water mister bottle, pump it up. Let's put this back here a little more. Alright, it's tight, tight, tight. I'm going to flood the whole thing. Just plain old tap water, nothing fancy. On my roller, alright, what I've done, can you see, where are we here? This mark, I put one on both sides, exactly the same spacing. What I do is use that as my gauge where to start. So I'm going to put this mark on the edge of my tape. I'm going to start right against the corner of this wall, and I just pull it down nice and even. Now flip it, find my mark on the opposite side, match it up so it's right there. These will overlap. Do not go over top of what you did. I flipped it again. Again, finding my mark. I'm going to put it back here on my start position. And that's it. I need to get a little bit over here because it's not perfectly spaced. This space is not the exact same equivalent to 3 widths of this. Just, again, line it up. Pull it down. And that's all there is to it. Look how much material does not come off on this, okay? See it? It's pretty clean because I have enough water on there. What you don't want is material getting stuck on here. If it does, it's going to totally change the look of this, and it will not look like alligator. Okay, we just have to repeat this process 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 more times in various panels. But before I can do that, I got to remove the toilet and the vanity to get behind them. So, see you in a bit. Here's where we are in the process so far. The walls are completely textured. You saw that process a little while ago. This is the joint compound. There is a close-up of the texture. Now, just pure joint compound, nothing fancy. I'm priming it using Zinsser 123. Zinsser is a product. 123. Zinsser is a manufacturer. 123 is the product. I tinted the product directly to the color that I wanted, which is, let me spin this way, this color. Now it's still drying. It looks like a mustard color. I'll show you when I get to the finished product. I'll give you a better example of what the color actually looks like. But I want to keep working. But so far, what I'm doing is I'm putting on the first coat of the Zinsser 123 tinted to the brown. Gonna let it dry completely and do a second coat. That'll be the base for my glaze. So let's get back to work. Okay, it's gonna be a little tough to see here, but we'll try to make this work. Taped off the panel. And now I've got my glaze. And all I'm gonna do is take a brush and I put it on. I'm not worried about covering the whole thing. I'm not even worried about like getting it everywhere. You'll see why. And it's very sporadic as I put it on. Okay. Just a little bit more here. I don't want a lot of glaze because what happens if you use too much glaze, it gets caught in the texture and it starts to run and drip and come down. Now, I take my trusty car wash brush and I manipulate this in. There's a little something from earlier, I gotta fix that. Alright, so I'm just gonna keep working it around. I'm working in circles. Never big patterns, but small tight circles because I've got to get it down in to this texture. In some areas this texture is pretty deep. Again, not a lot of glaze. But I don't go back and forth, I just keep working in small textures. It's a small space, so I don't have to really be concerned. Well, you're always concerned about how fast your glaze gets set up. But I really wanted to go with the paneling in here. And the biggest thing about your glaze is because I'm working in all these areas, it's consistency. So you gotta be aware of how much glaze you're putting on and keep doing it throughout. Too much glaze in this panel is going to be a lot darker. Here we are. Too much glaze in this panel will be darker than that panel. Now, see it's all manipulated around. And what I do is I take my rag. I'm going to come back and get the rag is flat. So I'm just riding over the top of it, the high spots. Alright. Like so. Whoops. My camera. I'm gonna let it set. Now this glaze is drying pretty quick. Get a better angle here. Which is fine because it actually works great. See if we can see the difference while we're waiting. See how the glaze builds up on the top a little bit and creates the worn effect. But look at the difference between wet, where we are, wet and dry. Huge difference. So I got to practice into the material, but so I'm working in circles, and it's going to keep pulling from the low spots and bringing across the high spots, or the flat, I should say. And then what happens is as it dries, it starts to get this hand rubbed effect. Or not hand rubbed, let me take that back. As it dries, it's going to catch, the glaze is going to get caught on itself, and it starts to create darker spots and lighter spots because the glaze is thicker than it is in some areas. So we get that look like this is really old and been here for a while. And that's what we're going for. Okay, so I'm going to get back to, yeah, see, it started setting up that quickly. And for this, it's fine. I don't have to go crazy. This is just a glaze from good old Benjamin Moore. All right, I'm going to finish it up and we'll take a look at it. Okay, I'm in the powder room. I'm finishing the walls today. Actually, for the most part, the walls are finished, except with the exception of this one panel right behind me here. I needed the glaze to cure because I'm going to put wax over top of it. And the wax is going to do a couple different things. But first, let's step back. The reason the glaze needs to be cured, because if I apply the wax to an uncured surface or uncured glaze or paint, because it's a petroleum-based product, it can reactivate and make the glaze lift. So we make sure there's no chances of that happening. Two, I did say it's a petroleum-based product, but this doesn't stink like a lot of those heavy-duty paste wax. This actually has a very pleasant odor. It's almost odorless. Has a very slight hint of an odor, but what's there doesn't smell, it smells okay. So that's good, because when you're working in somebody's home or in your own home, you don't want to be like, wham, heavy petroleum-based odor like you get with some of those heavy-duty paste waxes like at the home big box stores. Now, the wax does two things. It's going to give us an added level of decoration. It's also going to give us protection. So the walls with a coat of wax, if moisture gets splashed against it from somebody washing their hands, it's going to bead up and run off. Beautiful. So let's do this. See here? There's no wax. I'm sorry. Wax is here. There's no wax here. See the difference between the two? One, it's going to give it the richness that I'm going for. I want these walls to feel like old, leathery walls. Like an old saddle, a well-ridden saddle, or an old baseball glove. That's what I'm going for. So one, it's going to look like it, and two, it feels like it. It has a slickness to it and a warmth to it. It's just got I don't know, it's a sexy feel to it. Two, I've taken my bronze and my gold wax and mixed the two together so that, see that how dark it is compared to the non-waxed? So that even though it's a metallic bronze, it doesn't have that heavy metallic look to it. It has a hint to it. So when the light hits it, it kind of just dances off of it a little bit and gives it that just warm glow feel. So I wanted the bronze to darken it up a little bit. This is still pretty. It looks fine. There's nothing wrong with it at all. I just wanted some more out of it. And I threw the gold in there. So what I did is I took a half a quart of gold to a full quart of bronze. And I know somebody's going, you can't get all that in one can. I know. I took it, mixed it into a big container and stirred it up really well, and then put the rimette back into here so I could work out of it. Now the other thing is I'm not troweling it on because of this texture. These walls have a texture to it. Some areas it's pretty deep. It's like it's pretty deep. I don't know. Solid 1/8 of an inch. So if I try to take a trowel across it, it's going to scrape and scratch the top, and it could damage the painted finish, so we're not going to do that. I never use rags. I'm not going to say never. I don't use a rag on a wall because the rag gets saturated with wax, and I feel like I'm just wasting a lot of wax, so I go get my trusty brush. All right, it's just a wax application brush. When I'm done, I'll soak this thing in paint thinner, clean it out really well. Then I'll probably run some soap and water over it, and then dip it in hair conditioner so it stays nice and soft for the next time. But that's a whole different video of brushes. But let's do this. And hopefully it comes across really well. But let me move this camera. Okay. So here's the wall. Duh. All right. Shoot. Let me turn this in a little bit. It's going to be really hard. Okay. There's the line between our two panels. I'm sorry, I have to look here so I can see what you're seeing, so I make sure that what's coming out of my mouth matches up to where I'm pointing. Non-waxed, waxed. Can you see the difference? It's super soft and subtle, but it's just so much, boom. See the gold dancing off of there? Here, let's see something. If I rub it, ooh. Hear the difference? Soft, harsh. That's the wax, okay? And now look at the difference. All right, see the hints of bronze and gold here? It has like that depth to it. And over here, it's still pretty. There's nothing wrong with it. Don't get me wrong. But this is just kind of like wham. And this is okay. So let me get the wax. All right, so what we're gonna do is I load it up. And I'm putting it on in circles. Okay? And the reason I'm doing circles is, remember, there's mica powder in here. So if I'm not careful and I go like this, or up and down, or side to side, I could create brush strokes, and I don't want that. 2, I'm massaging the wax down into the texture. And I'm not loading it up. Remember, now wax, you get it on too thick, it dries cloudy and hazy, and then you're up the river without a paddle. Or is it down? I don't remember. Doesn't matter. You're basically screwed, because the only way to fix it is to strip it. We don't want to do that. Alright, so all I'm going to do is take my time, and you can clearly see where the wax is going on. See how it's changing it? Now, the other thing too is the wax is wet, so it's hard to see the mica at this point. Once it's dry, and the downside to this, because of the thickness, this will take probably 3 to 4 hours for this wax to get dry enough to polish. And then once we polish it, buff it out, polish it, that's when the mica comes to life. You don't really even see it. What happens is the wax at this point, well, not at this point, once it dries, and you'll see it. I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry. Let's step back. At this point it's wet. We're going to wait for it to dry. Once it's dry, it's a flat finish because it's still porous. It hasn't been buffed. So the light's being absorbed into the wax. Once we polish it out, it reflects the light, and you'll see all that mica powder come to the top. So I'm going to go ahead and wax this panel, come back and show you how to buff it. Okay, so the wax is dry. We're ready to start polishing it out. If you hear this, that's already been waxed and buffed. This hasn't been buffed yet, so it's got a little resistance to it because it's still porous. Taking a flat rag, flat side, and I'm just going to simply go in here like so with a light pressure. Don't push on it. Don't try to kill it. Now, I know you've seen where in some of the videos where I've taken my car buffer and hit it. Absolutely not. It's too aggressive, and with this irregular texture on here, it'll cut through it and expose. It'll just rip everything right off. And we're not going for a super high gloss. We're going for that beautiful luster. Can you see it? Like, it looks like an old piece of oiled leather. I love it. This is it. Now listen. Good. We're consistent, and the look is just perfect. All right, that's it. I hope it comes across on this as it does, as it looks here, because this is just, I'm absolutely over the top happy with this. So from here, I'm going to start wood graining all the trim. So of course I'm going to take you along with that part of the project. So my name is Ron Layman. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.